All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. Going to do another movie chat today with my standard movie chat partners, Dusty, A.K.A. Woke Centrist, A.K.A. Dustin Cubit, and of course, Chris James, A.K.A. my fellow Canadian stoner and my favorite cable guy. And we're going to talk about 12 Monkeys, which was Chris's suggestion, the 1995 science fiction film directed by Terry Gilliam, who was a former member of Monty Python. And I found out when I think when I first watched this film that he actually directs some serious movies like this one. And of course, it's starring Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, who both play kind of like crazy people. Brad Pitt much more so than Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis is like a kind of slightly crazy criminal who gets sent back in time from the future after a virus has destroyed the world, decimated the human population, and forced all the humans to live back underground again. And he goes back in time to try to save the world, basically. So, as we usually do, why don't we start off by going through what you guys think of the movie overall?
Well, I'm obviously a fan. I suggested the movie, but I was going back through just like clips of it on YouTube, and I think the performance from the actors is for me what um, is my biggest takeaway from the film. I mean, the plot is
Oh
is
yeah,
is cool in its sense. It's pretty much just like it's kind of like a loop, right? He goes back in time, and then in the end scene, he's getting shot, and his younger version of himself is witnessing this happen, right? So,
yeah,
and you're like kind of left, you thinking of how different, or many different ways of how this could, go on if this movie were another hour long or whatever.
hmm
Um, it's I think I suggested it obviously due to COVID that was going on at the time, and
still
you know,
is.
well, we were still depending on depending on who you listen to
Yeah,
where we are with COVID right now. But that's I don't know. It was one of my. I was a big Brad Pitt fan in the '90s, so a majority of those films I enjoyed.
like Fight
Um,
Club.
Terry Gilliam as a um, again, I only knew him from Monty Python. I didn't really know any of his other films, but yeah, my biggest takeaway is Brad Pitt's performance, obviously, and
Yeah,
Bruce Willis. I think Brad Pitt got nominated for Golden Globe or something for best supporting actor, if I'm not mistaken. If it
I'm
was
gonna
not a
check.
Golden Globe, maybe a Academy Award.
I'm gonna check that right now.
Yeah, check me
Um,
because my memory is a little bit shot. But
oh yeah, it won Best Supporting Actor for Brad Pitt and Best Costume Design.
okay, yeah. So best
Yeah,
supporting actor, and his in the '90s that was one of his like that and like Interview with a Vampire and Fight Club. This is kind of like Brad Pitt coming into his own or whatever. So yeah,
for sure.
pass it off to Dusty now.
Yeah. Actually, Dusty, before you give your opinion, I just wanted to comment on a few things you said there, Chris. Yeah, like the performances are great. Like I've never seen Brad Pitt play like a literally insane person in any other movies, and those little ticks that he has, as if he has I don't know, Asperger's or something, where he goes like he makes that weird like twitchy noise. he plays like a literally crazy person so well. And I like how Bruce Willis's character too. He used to, like, in his earlier action films, like in the 80s and 90s, like when he was an action hero, he was like a standard violent action star, but he had like sort of a crazy violent streak in him, especially even like in Die Hard. And it seemed like they kind of, like Terry Gilliam perhaps sort of like magnified that to an extent and made him he seems like he's at least slightly literally crazy, which leads to some other interesting aspects of the film of him questioning whether he's actually crazy or not, and whether he's actually living in the 90s, or this thing about him coming from the future is just an insane fantasy. And yeah, that thing how they wrap everything up in the end is cool, how it ends in him as a child seeing himself as an adult murdered when he's trying to shoot the guy that's about to release the virus. And then he has it as a recurring dream throughout his life, and then as he goes back in time, little bits of that recurring dream are revealed more and more, until like you find out that that woman, that psychiatrist who he's with throughout the movie, it reveals her face, and then more is revealed, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so anyway, what are your thoughts overall about the movie, Dusty?
This movie makes me remember that Brad Pitt is actually a good actor. Um, yeah, like you said, him playing the crazy guy, I was really impressed with all the little mannerisms and tics that he had, and just his speech pattern as well, and the really shifty look he had in his eyes, and just everything about it was a great performance by him. Um, I think Bruce Willis just always plays Bruce Willis for the most part. Um, I always see him playing sort of the same type of dude. This is not like a Die Hard type character. Obviously, he's not playing like a rough New York cop. But the odd thing about it, like he is a convict. I'm trying to think. I have no idea. We don't really get to see what put him in that place. Um, Typically, he seems it's a bit too even tempered to be a convict type at times. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie. Like I really liked all the performances for the most part.
Yeah, that's crazy that you say
Yeah.
that, because I was just thinking when Andrew was mentioning Die Hard, that Bruce Willis is pretty much playing Bruce Willis again, where you have this hero guy who um kind of gets his ass kicked. We're left with a Bruce Willis bloodied and sweaty and, droopy eyed, and the typical Bruce Willis kind of role. Yeah, different. Obviously, he's a cop in Die Hard, but it's funny. I didn't even put those two together, because I know we did the Die Hard Mindgasms movie chat on that as well. So yeah, yet again, I'm reminded of another Bruce Willis role of him doing the same thing. But yeah, for me, it was more about Brad Pitt. I think he was the superior performance in this one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's I was curious about what you thought about this. Had you seen the movie before, Dusty? I hadn't remembered whether you had. And either way, I was wondering, because I was thinking about our last mixed mental arts chat that we did on Total Recall, about how you thought that in the movie, um, everything that happens to Arnold after he goes to the recall place is actually his manufactured memory slash dream that he pays for. Obviously, it seems like it's a little
Hmm.
it seems much more certain to me in this movie that like Bruce Willis actually does come from the future and they're about to stop a virus, but there's like at least a tiny bit of doubt placed in the last bit of the movie where you don't actually see the virus released and the human population decimated and all that shit, and it could give you more doubt, like when the Army of the 12 Monkeys just releases animals from the zoo instead of releasing the virus, and then also that that like homeless guy who's talking to Bruce Willis at one point when he goes back in time, and then that psychiatrist who he's with, she talks to the homeless guy at first too, and then there's one point where Bruce Willis's character, when he basically like vanishes from the mental institution, when he goes back in time, he's in this sort of like similar place seemingly in the future, like a cell that he's being held in because he tried to break out of the mental institution. It seems like he's in a similar place but in the future, but he's hearing that homeless guy's sort of disembodied voice, and he doesn't know where he's coming from, and it's making him question his sanity. So that's my really long-winded way of asking you whether you think that like everything that Bruce Willis thinks is happening in the movie actually is happening, or he's crazy. Like I said before, I think that what he thinks is happening, but he's like slightly crazy. But yeah, so actually, I'm curious about what both of you guys think about that.
I was convinced. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was convinced that that he actually came from the future, because one of the things we were told, like right from the beginning when he went into the program or whatever, we did hear from other inmates that a lot of them just go crazy from the experience. So I was thinking, well, we kind of got to assume that he's seeing these other people. I guess the psychiatrist never saw any of these other people. Except from that photo, right, where he's in World War One.
Yeah,
That's
when
kind of
his
like the link.
when he sees his kind of like the guy who's in this cell next to him in the futuristic world, who also gets sent back in time and accidentally gets sent back. That's one of the wrong times that he accidentally gets sent back to. It's like similar how in the earlier part of the movie, when Bruce Willis's character first gets sent back in time and he's supposed to get sent back to 1996, he gets sent back to 1990, and then obviously both of them getting accidentally sent to World War One is a crazy thing too. And then you were probably about to go into that thing about the bullet in his leg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the bullet, the photo. We'd have to assume that, because he really doesn't know a whole lot about the world. It seems like the music, he gets really enthusiastic about that, as if he hadn't heard any of it in either a really long time, or it was kind of like in the tip of his memory.
I just thought of that because he doesn't, like, when he first hears that music, he says or implies that he hasn't heard anything like that before. But if at the end he actually is that kid who sees himself getting murdered, then wouldn't he have already, like, at least been aware that music exists? I never thought about that before.
Well, I'm not sure which one what actual song he mentioned that about. But we gotta assume like he was that young when the world got turned to shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're basically see these dreams that he has, which are not really dreams, but more so memories that he had about when he was younger, about the fate he inevitably meets at the end of the movie. So I'm I'm like pretty convinced that he was a time traveler, but I'm also convinced that he did kind of go a little bit nuts, which would explain like the disembodied voice and him, trying to seek help when he came back and trying to deny the existence of the whole time travel thing. So I don't know. I do think he actually was a, a time traveler because he guessed
Yeah,
the well, the kid in the well. So there are just like a bunch of things that kind of
yeah.
pointed to him being a time traveler.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. Like that basically, like he actually is a time traveler trying to save the world, but he's like a little crazy, so he's questioning reality, especially like how he says the second time he comes back from traveling in time, from traveling in 1996, he talks about how it's not good for someone's sanity to be living in two different time frames. And then like other things, for example, that show like that from other people's perspectives, that it seems like it was almost impossible, at least if he had not time traveled, are when he escapes from that mental institution and other people come and see his empty cell and it was a locked room and there's no other way out other than the door. And then that time when the cops find him when he's kidnapped the psychiatrist, and they're about to find him when they're in the forest after he's gone to meet Brad Pitt when he's with his father's rich mansion and rich people, and he's trying to talk to him, and they're in the forest, and Bruce Willis is like kind of going crazy a little bit and going around in the water, and the psychiatrist isn't looking at him, and then she turns around and he's vanished, and you can even see like the pools of water in the pond where he was just walking around. Like it didn't make a pattern that would even look like he had just run into the forest or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was mostly convinced that he was a time traveler. I was like, oh, like he knows all this stuff. Um, and he seemed to know what the 12 monkey symbol was, and how it was related to the plot. And the thing is that the 12 monkeys, that symbol was tangentially related to the whole virus thing. So it's,
Yeah.
I think they weave a lot of clues that suggest that he was in fact from the future.
Yeah. Plus, there's that reconstructed voicemail that he hears in the future with the psychiatrist's voice, and he doesn't recognize her voice. But when she tells him, when he goes back in time after she's left a message at that carpet, or left a voicemail at that carpet cleaning place, he knows what she's said because he has a good memory.
Yeah. It's certainly more, much less ambiguous than Total Recall.
Yeah.
Because I think we had differing opinions on whether it
Yeah,
was real
I think
or
you were
fake.
more convinced than me that everything that happens to Arnold after he goes to Total Recall was his like basically dream / memory that he paid for, and you kind of made that much more compelling for me than it had been to me before. I'm still kind of like agnostic about it, but
I would just say if you go and you want to explore that further, just rewatch the scene where he's being given the options for his little dream vacation.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, like specifically the woman who the like Martian woman who he ends up with, and other details.
It
But
was just too
yeah,
coincidental.
yeah. But yeah, what do you think about that aspect of 12 Monkeys and Total Recall too, if you've seen it, Chris?
Yeah, I saw It's been a while since I've seen Total Recall, and now that Dusty just mentioned that scene, I kind of want to go back and watch it. But yeah, I never was under the impression that Bruce Willis's character was kind of under a crazy spell or whatever. I was always convinced that he was kind of a time traveler. You had the kind of council that sent him into the past 6 years. I think they sent him into 1990 or something like that, and he was supposed to go back to 1996 or whatever.
Yeah.
But they knew kind of see it's for me, I was kind of like, was he sent back to prevent this from happening, or was he sent back to be sort of like a bridge to the plot that and there was no way for them to know what was going to happen. I mean, the first time I watched it, I feel like the council there, saying you got to go back to find the what's his name, Christopher Plummer character, the doctor, and because they were under the impression that he was the one that was unleashed this virus and caused the whole thing to skyrocket. So yeah, I was just I was kind of felt that he was a time traveler. I mean, once you meet the Brad Pitt character, I can see where you can kind of assume that he might be just suffering from some kind of delusion or a crazy episode or something. But yeah, I've always viewed that movie as Bruce Willis just being the guy that was sent back to the future or back in the past to try to. He's obviously an essential piece to the plot here, and I think the council probably knew that he was a young kid at seeing, you know what I mean? They knew the doctor was potentially the culprit. And I forget it's not a famous guy, but there's another guy there. He looks like Swedish or whatever with the slick back hair. I forget his name.
Oh, the guy who ends up being the real bad guy who releases
the real bad
virus.
guy, right? So I think that in that time frame where they're about to send Bruce Willis back, I think they're under the impression that Christopher Plummer's character is the bad guy, right? And we find out obviously that it's the other guy.
Well, Christopher Plummer's character and Brad Pitt.
And Brad Pitt being bad guys?
Yeah, kind of, right? Like, or do you mean like what actually happened or what they thought happened? I guess what they thought happened was that Brad Pitt's character was the bad guy, and then I guess what we're made to believe is that Christopher Plummer's character is the bad guy, like at least for manufacturing the virus, and then obviously the Army of the 12 Monkeys, all they actually did was release animals from the zoo. Is that what you mean?
Well, I didn't really see Brad Pitt as a bad guy in this film. He was more like just a guy that was just not an accident, but he was like a section of the plot that they were trying to like.
Oh yeah.
Persuade you into thinking that he was the cause of all this stuff, when it turns out that he was just part of liberating these animals from the zoo.
He was basically just like a crazy environmental activist, basically.
That's right.
He wasn't even trying to release the virus, right?
That's right. But if you're watching this for the first time, I think Terry Gilliam or whoever because this is a remake, if I'm not mistaken. There was another movie or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's based on a French film. It's based on a short French film that came out in the 60s.
Gotcha. So I think I see Brad Pitt's character more as kind of like a diversion in this, right? Where you're left not, as the watcher, you don't know where this guy is kind of coming from. He's obviously he's crazy and shit. So, but yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to say about that. Is
there's also a note that there was a 12 Monkeys television series, and I watched the first season. I don't know how many seasons it went on
Oh
for,
yeah. It was
but
a recent thing.
the time travel thing and that was real. They didn't play it off as him going crazy or anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the show. I think I'm not even sure if I've heard of that. I might have heard of it before, but I definitely haven't seen it.
It was probably one of those series that got like 3 episodes of pilot and then it was canceled because I do remember hearing about it, but I didn't watch it myself.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was a sci-fi show, and I do know it went on for a second season. Don't know if it went on for a third.
Okay.
So how it relates to today? How's your feelings on? Obviously, it's not accurate at all. You know, we're going through a real pandemic right now, and I think even in the intro, I think the pandemic that they went through in the movie was like 1% of it was it's kind of like the reverse of what happened now. It's like 1% of the population survived and 99% of the population got this virus and died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Obviously,
like The Stand.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of too. Because Dusty and Parker and I are doing a book chat on The Stand soon, also, which is another like post-apocalyptic. Well, it's a post-apocalyptic movie about a pandemic. This isn't a post-apocalyptic one. It's a like trying to prevent the apocalypse.
Who wrote that?
Stephen King.
King? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a really super long book, but really awesome too.
What's the plot of that again?
Basically like this kind of like super flu virus starts getting people sick, and it kills a whole lot, and it kills most people, I would say. And then the survivors go around and it really slowly introduces the character, reveals what's happening in the world, how society collapses, and then the characters meet each other, and then they really slowly start to form new societies and rival factions, and it slowly turns into like this basically kind of like religious war between two rival cults, and it gets increasingly fucked up and supernatural as it goes along. Of course, it's a fucking awesome book.
Right on. It's funny. I just started reading. I've never read Guns, Germs, and Steel before by, oh no,
Jared Diamond.
Jared Diamond. Thank you. I just started reading it, and it's the same kind of thing. You know, he starts off talking about these, tribes in Papua New Guinea that, went to war with each other and how humans evolved, and yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't know why. It's like one of those books that everybody talks about and it's in like their top 10. And I bought it years ago. It's been on my bookshelf and I never got around to actually tackling it. And now I'm going to give it a shot, obviously. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's extremely dry. It's like reading a textbook.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the audiobook right now. So yeah, it starts off kind of, it reminds me of Sapiens a little bit, how they kind of go through like, the start of human culture and stuff.
Yeah, it's in terms of what you were talking about too, obviously, like if we like the pandemic in 12 Monkeys is obviously way worse than coronavirus, as you were talking about in today's world. Like it killed 5 billion people. I would be very surprised, to say the least, if coronavirus kills 5 billion people. I seriously doubt that's going to happen. I think it's like worldwide, it's probably something like hundreds of thousands of deaths now, though, I think, right? But obviously I'd be willing to bet a large sum of money that it won't kill 5 billion people and force humans underground.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what the numbers are. I haven't worldwide deaths, but
It's like I really I don't have a good idea of specific numbers, but I think it's thousands in Canada, and I think it's over 100,000 in the U.S. I don't know. Maybe you know more about that, Dusty.
well, I think it was like 160, 70,000 in the US last time I checked, and I think we're at like maybe I want to say 20,000
20?
to
Oh, okay.
20,000 maybe here in Canada, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was 2,000.
Oh, okay.
I know that's a huge difference, and
Yeah.
but I know the United States was somewhere around 150 to 170 last time I checked.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously you don't want anybody dying, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
5
that
million.
doesn't mean that that the people who died their lives are worth any less, of course.
Yeah, no, it's just when I was asking earlier, I just not that I think it's funny, it's just that it's kind of like it's not the opposite, but the numbers like yeah, in the movie 12 Monkeys, you have this 99% of the population has been wiped out due to this virus and 1% has been alive, where COVID has kind of been like 1% of the population has probably perished, unfortunately, from this, and 99% of the population has been, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the reaction is I don't know, it's different. It'd be an interesting debate for sure. There's a lot of gray area there, obviously, of how we reacted versus like the 12 monkeys, you know, them living underground, which obviously makes sense if 99% of the population is going to die from this. But like here in Canada, you know, there was a big push for schools to reopen or not reopen. That was a huge debate. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And a bunch of other there's so many things you could break down about COVID, obviously, you know, age factors, population. BC was doing oh sorry, you're in Alberta, which isn't Alberta going through a spike right now, or didn't you guys go through a spike?
We did I'm not sure if we still are, but we at least did at first when things started to reopen back up in stage 1 or something. I think we might be in stage 2 now. I think there was at least a bit of a spike for sure. Even here in Fort McMurray, once we started opening things up a little bit more, apparently a few people started having house parties, and then most people who would go there got COVID. So that happened. But then I also like without even thinking about it, I went with my friend to like, oh yeah, I think I told you guys about this already. I went to like a semi party. Oh, Dusty got kicked out, and here he is again. You get kicked out there, Dusty?
Yeah, that's because I was moving around.
Okay. Yeah, without even thinking about it, I went to a kind of like semi little chill party with my friend and a bunch of chicks who she plays baseball with, and we were like, it was like 5 people or so, and none of us were 6 feet away from each other or wearing masks or anything like that. And I don't think I touched another person or anything like they touched, but they ordered pizza and I didn't have any, so they were all like touching the same pizza box and stuff like that. It's just like
Did any of
normal
them
human.
get the COVID?
Not that I know of. That's possible though.
Yeah. Now, do you have like a mandated mask wearing where you are?
No. Our mayor said that he's not gonna make it mandatory unless it gets a lot more serious. But it's still just highly recommended. How is it there?
It's mandatory here,
Oh,
where I am.
okay. Is it
And like
mandatory? Oh, Dusty got kicked out again. I was gonna ask him if it's mandatory there. So it's a law there.
Yeah, it's a law. Like you can get fined if you're not wearing a mask, and I don't know. People have been complying with it. I mean, I would say it's rare for me to go into like a Tim Hortons and see somebody not wear a mask, but I don't know, man. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty fucked up because I'm a person of logic, and like I see a lot of people. This is the weird thing. I was in Tim Hortons the other day, and people walk into Tim Hortons, mask on. They order their coffee or their bagel or their donut. Then they sit down, and mask comes off to eat their bagel and donut.
Yeah, that kind of defeats the purpose of wearing a mask.
Do you know what I mean? And then mask goes on back, and then you walk out the door, and everybody's on board with it. Like the whole entire like municipality, and everybody's like, I just don't. Like and this is backed by science is going to say this is, they're going to, doctors with stethoscopes would show up there and check all the boxes off on their checkboard and go, this is we approve all this. Like this doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? Now, having said that, if you're going to like a Walmart or a Costco or a mall and places where people are going to be masked, obviously that's great. But yeah, restaurants are weird. It's strange, especially if you're eating indoors. You have to wear a mask on the way in, but then you can remove it to eat and drink. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't think I've actually gone to a restaurant anytime recently. I've gone with people through drive-throughs or things like that, but I haven't actually been to restaurants. But that's a good point. Like if you're gonna wear a mask and then come into Tim Hortons or a restaurant like you were talking about, and then you're going to sit at a table and you have to remove your mask to eat and drink anyway, then that sort of defeats the purpose of the mask, because the purpose of you wearing it is preventing other people from getting the virus, which they can get if you're not wearing a mask, right?
Yeah, and I want to be very clear. I'm not anti-mask at all. I wear a mask at work, no problems, and I wear a mask to get a bag of Doritos or whatever, no problem.
Well, the mask is to stop, like, because the mask is to stop people from spreading, not from catching. So if someone is taking their mask off to eat, I think it's okay if they're like distancing themselves from people. It's not that great if you're indoors because air is recirculated. But if they're like talking and stuff without a mask on, then they're kind of just spreading their stuff around. But I don't know. I don't think eating indoors is such a good idea right now.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that. And like I said, I'm not anti-mask. I just question some of these kind of ideas that are, because I live in a city where masks are mandated in any public space. So if you go into a Walgreens or if you go into Walmart or something like that, you have to have a mask on. So
right. Yeah,
which is fine, but our city has 500,000 people, and we had 2 cases today.
So, oh wow,
2? That's it?
Yeah. And
that's
good. Yeah, you guys are doing pretty good then.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good, but keep in mind we don't have the border open, and I think we're going to do great. As far as this is my just silly prediction. I'm not a medical doctor at all. I think I've said this before, but yeah, I think we're going to do fine. Canada's actually done pretty good, but I think once the American border opens up, I think obviously our cases are going to spike at that point, and I think we're going to close down probably schools at that point too.
Well, I don't see why they should open the American border at this point. Like it doesn't seem smart to do so.
It doesn't make a difference to you guys, right? Like to you guys, we're like just another state. We're only a population of 36 million people, right? So it doesn't. But to Canadian independent business owners that rely on like parts, for example, like I'm in Southwestern Ontario, so there's a lot of back and forth between Windsor and Detroit for auto parts for mom and pop shops. And so those businesses are just getting destroyed right now. Right. So obviously keep the border closed. We're not.
Well, there's so the border closure, it doesn't allow trade.
That I don't know. But I mean, if you were,
As I know, on the southern border, Mexico is also closed the border, but it's open to trade and a central crossing, which is basically due to like if people need medical attention or something like that. But if you're going to visit somebody or something like that, they won't let you in.
Right.
Yeah, and in like the Detroit border, for example, the only way you can get through is if obviously you're a Canadian citizen and you have a Canadian passport. And I also heard that you can claim that you're bypassing through to go to Alaska or something like that. But even that, they've kind of put restrictions on. As far as trade goes, I don't know. I'm just picturing mom and pop shops sending a delivery boy over to, Michigan to pick up parts, and it hurts Canadians to have our border closed more than it does Americans, I would think. Having said that, I don't like open the border whenever you want. I'm just saying we have to do it at some time, right? And when that border opens, I think our cases are going to go up at that point. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's likely.
Scazio is here now, by the way, A.K.A. she's an Elder.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit late. I was watching a movie. I messed up the EST and I thought it was like PST, so it's like started watching it late. Yeah, they aren't letting flights off. They aren't even letting Americans go to like third world countries, like because some of my family members were trying to go to Bangladesh and apparently they can't go because it's like it's blocked. Travel is blocked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, although they're letting people in over there, they're not letting Americans go from here.
Yeah.
From our side.
Where I forget what state do you live in?
I live in California.
Oh, okay.
I live in the Bay Area.
Okay.
So like the northern part, middle part of California.
Okay. Okay. Is it? It's really bad there, isn't it? COVID.
Yeah, we had like 200,000 cases and
yeah, wow,
like 6,000 deaths or something. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. There's a lot of travel from Asia to here, to the San Francisco Bay Area. So there's even Chinatown in San Francisco. So we've been hit pretty hard. I don't know if it's as bad as Florida, but it's pretty bad.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to know
Florida
the
and Texas are the bad ones right now.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just gonna say it'd be interesting to know the numbers because California State and Canada are apparently pretty close in population. So it'd be interesting to know the numbers of, you know what I mean, between just those two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me check the total number in California.
Sure. Also, we didn't get your thoughts yet, Scazio, on the movie 12 Monkeys overall, and we were talking about aspects like Bruce Willis's character questioning reality and how it's revealed that it wasn't Brad Pitt's character who released the virus. It was that redheaded guy who works for his father, and how it's revealed at the end that Bruce Willis's character as a kid sees himself as an adult shot when he's trying to shoot the actual guy who releases the virus, and aspects like that.
Oh yeah, like both versions of him was alive. The child version of him and the adult version that traveled time. So over here they don't break the time wall. So whatever happened in his past, it's like on repeat, right? When he travels back, yeah. In some movies they actually change the past.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So they couldn't have stopped the virus. They would just like he was saying from the beginning, it could just find its course or something.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. That's one thing I was thinking about during the end of the movie this time. It's like it's almost like them trying to change the future is what led to the future happening. Like it's almost as if everything was supposed to happen the way it did, which led to, like, the virus. Like you said, the virus would have been released anyway, but things happened exactly the way they were, and then the virus was released in exactly the way that happened as well, and they didn't really change anything.
Did he traveling back trigger it? Like the lab guy from the professor's, the virologist lab guy spread the virus, right?
You mean like when Bruce Willis traveled back in 1996?
Yeah, but did he time travel? Was his time travel the cause of the virus, or did the guy working for the Nobel Prize winning professor, was that guy already planning to spread the virus anyways?
I think it like
I think it was just the redheaded dude.
Yeah, I think it kind of seems to me like he was already planning to release it, or at least he was like sort of leaning that way, because remember when he meets that psychiatrist in 1996, and she's doing her book signing at the end of her lecture, and he's talking to her about how like how easily the world could end, and all that kind of stuff. I kind of get the feeling from that, at least, that he was going to do that, and then I don't know. I think it's just like the actor being such a good actor that he does a good job of conveying through his facial expressions in that one scene with him and Christopher Plummer, the scientist who manufactured the virus, who's also Brad Pitt's character's father, when the redheaded guy and him are talking to each other. It seems like I kind of get the impression that he was already planning on releasing the virus, or at least doing something in that scene when the psychiatrist calls Christopher Plummer's character and she warns him, and he's really skeptical, but he says he wants to beef up the security protocols anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the guy was already planning on doing it. I don't think it was triggered by the time travel. Yeah. That's how I feel about it. Because that guy, I don't know, that guy looks really like evil. I don't know why. He did a good job acting that part.
Yeah, exactly.
Something tells me like that he was planning on wiping out humanity or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking earlier too about how both Bruce Willis and especially Brad Pitt do a great acting job in this movie too. And we were just looking up at the start, and Brad Pitt actually won Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards in 1996 for that role. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was high energy, acting really crazy.
Yeah.
I was wondering if them traveling time triggered it, because in the airport, when the security asked the guy to open it, actually, that wasn't triggered by the time travel. I guess it was a security protocol. But I was wondering why that guy would ask like a scientist to like open virus germ samples, like open over. You have to open it right here. He says he has the papers for it. Like, I don't know why he would want a virus to get open.
Yeah, that wasn't smart.
Yeah, that wasn't. I don't know. He just put it in his nose as well. Like, yeah, you can go smell it. It's almost like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I guess that was patient zero.
Yeah, definitely. That's another thing I noticed this time that I either didn't notice before or didn't remember, was at the very ending of the movie, when the guy after the guy gets on the plane with the virus, he happens to be sitting next to that woman who, in the future world where Bruce Willis comes from, she's one of the panel of scientists, and she says she's in insurance. I just thought that was a funny little thing, because it makes me wonder, like, how many of the panel of scientists actually are scientists, and how many of them just assumed the role of scientists because they were authoritative people, or they had some sort of role of authority in whatever they were doing.
Yeah, I wonder if she convinced him to spread it all. Actually, he had tickets to a lot of countries where the virus started popping up, so I guess she won.
Yeah, all of those countries where there were the first outbreaks, I think, when Bruce Willis was talking about that earlier in the movie.
Yeah. Actually, it was in a briefing, I think, like before the last time they sent him back, they were like teaching him stuff about the virus.
Yeah. What we were talking about this earlier too. What do you think about the aspect of basically Bruce Willis's character questioning his reality at some point, like questioning whether he actually did come from the future and whether there actually is a virus? I mean, when we were talking about, we were kind of all coming to the conclusion that it seems to us like he actually is a time traveler trying to stop a virus, but he's also just kind of crazy. Plus, traveling in different times, as he says to the scientist when he comes back from traveling to 1996, he thinks it's like not psychologically good for people to live in two different time zones. And obviously, it's probably even worse for someone like him who seems like borderline crazy already.
Yeah, they like before his mission, they tell him like it's not for everyone. You have to be like really tough. People go crazy when they do this mission, this apparently important mission that he was supposed to do. And also, he seems a bit off. He doesn't seem like a normal. Even if he's a time traveler, he seems a bit off. He seems like he has some mental issues in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he at first he was pretty sure that he came from the future. The last time they sent him after teaching him everything, like he was very. I was wondering, is it because he wants to stay in that timeline? Is he trying to stay in that timeline? So he's convincing the psychiatrist that he must be crazy. He needs to go get checked up or something, or is he actually
Maybe he's in love with the psychiatrist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he definitely falls in love with her, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised the psychiatrist fell in love with him. She was like, this guy's totally nuts, but she's like in love with him. He kidnaps, like his second interaction is like kidnapping her, like tying her up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think
What do you?
We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I think. Well, actually, we weren't talking about exactly this aspect, but we were talking earlier about how she sees that picture of that guy who's like in the cell next to Bruce Willis's character in the future. She sees that picture of him in World War I when he gets shot, and she sees that picture of Bruce Willis in World War I too. That seems to be like the linchpin sort of that convinces her that his story is true. But you're right that she's like she doesn't seem as skeptical as she should be. Like even if I saw something like that, I would still be like, okay, but could this picture be fake? I don't know.
Yeah. Also, I guess the detective calling her and telling her that the bullet they found in him, that could have been a prank too. I mean, someone could call like, yeah, we found a bullet. It's from 1920.
And watching that in the last like 5-10 years with Photoshop and different editing skills and blah 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 that we had, that's much more believable now. But that film was, I mean, 12 Monkeys 95, right? So back then, that was like, that's hardcore evidence if you see a photo like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, nowadays we would be a lot more skeptical. That's true.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the guy that keeps whispering in his head? Is it in his head or is it like someone communicating from the future? Like right before he time travels, there's this weird noise of this guy, right, that talks to him. That's kind of messing around with him.
I don't. That's one thing that I mentioned earlier too. Like that's one aspect that sort of makes you question whether he actually is experiencing reality or whether he is crazy. I don't know. Like, to me, that sort of seems like maybe like one of the aspects of his craziness, but he still actually is a time traveler trying to stop the virus. But like, it's that homeless guy who we see in 1996 when he's with the psychiatrist, and then she talks to him later, and he's like clearly this crazy homeless guy. But then Bruce Willis hears his voice also after he vanishes from the psychiatric institution from a locked room with the only entrance being the door, that time that he travels back to the future. And then he's in like some sort of similar cell in the future, but he's hearing that voice that seems sort of disembodied and you don't know where it's coming from. That scene, like, if Bruce Willis's character actually is a time traveler trying to stop a pandemic, which it seems like he probably is, that seems like one aspect of him that like is crazy, which to me, if that is the case, that makes the movie more brilliant, because it makes you question his perspective more. And maybe it's like one of those unreliable narrator movies, but it kind of seems like it actually is happening, but he's just also crazy.
Yeah, that I question that too, because that guy, if someone was communicating, that guy would be a bit more professional. This guy seems like a troll. He's like trying to fuck with Bruce Willis right before he does that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that the time travel, they're trying to convey that there is a physical toll and mental toll. So I think at the point where he's hearing this guy talk to him, this is the mental toll of the time travel, kind of what they mentioned right in the beginning of the movie, that not everybody makes it through mentally. Like it's basically it turns people insane going back in time.
Yeah, that makes sense. It also happens right before he travels time. Actually, one time it didn't happen when he traveled, like the time in the washroom, in the airport washroom. He hears that guy, and he opens like a booth. There's some other guy. Can I get?
Oh, I forgot I had myself muted.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, it's that guy taking a shit in the airport bathroom, isn't it? When he hears that voice.
Yeah, he does.
That's
And once he opens the door, the guy in the booth kind of sounds like that guy as well. So I was like wondering.
Yeah.
Who was the other guy that traveled back and gave him the gun? Did they show that guy before?
That
he recognizes that guy, or was it his prison inmate friend?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Jose.
That's also the guy that he also, when Bruce Willis accidentally gets sent back in time to World War I, he does too. And then we see him like towards the end of the movie when he gives Bruce Willis a gun to shoot someone, but he doesn't say who to shoot. And it's right after Bruce Willis's character leaves that voicemail at that carpet cleaning place, and then he travels back. That guy presumably traveled back in time from the future to right after he made the phone call.
Yeah, they also changed the going to past mission. It was supposed to be understanding the path of the virus, but now they're like trying to prevent it. Like gives him a gun, you have to kill the guy that's spreading. I don't know what happened. What changed their mind?
I think that when after he gets sent back in time, is it the second time? I don't remember whether it's the first time or the second time, but I think he comes back with the information. Yeah. When he travels back in time, I think. Oh no, shit! I don't remember. But when he travels back in time after 1996, the first time, right after he meets with Brad Pitt when he's at his rich father's mansion, and he vanishes when he's like in the forest by the car with the psychiatrist when the cops are about to catch him, and he travels back in time. That time, I think that's when he sort of convinced the scientists to let him travel back in time again, even though they were going to send a scientist once they got the information, like you said. I think that's because, as we were talking about earlier, I think that's because he had already fallen in love with the psychiatrist at that point. So he wanted to go back for her. And as we find out when he travels back in time that time, he was convinced by her that he's literally crazy. So he thinks that traveling to the future aspect is literally a hallucination anyway, even though he convinces them in the future that he thinks it actually is reality.
Yeah. So they send the gun to get the guy. The Jose guy threatens him, right? Like he has to shoot someone, or they kill the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he didn't want to do it. And then I think it's interesting too that right before that guy goes away, Bruce Willis says, "Wait, who am I supposed to shoot?" That was funny that he didn't tell him who he's supposed to shoot, who's going to release the virus.
Yeah. They didn't even know. They were like following this animal right activist group. Like they thought they were the one that spread the virus. They didn't even know it's the other guys. That explains all the animals roaming around. And when in the future, when he's collecting samples, there's like a lion in. I was wondering why is there a lion in New York, like on a building?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, I mean, also though, we don't get told what time Bruce Willis's character travels from in the future. So I mean, it could have been a long time, which is partially why that bear is there, presumably. Although I don't know how long it would take for animals to come there. But you're right. Like a lion, it's not like North America is not its regular climate anyway. So that one probably came from the zoo. But then there's also, since we don't know what time from the future Bruce Willis travels from, it's hard to know. Like, it could have been a long time, and there could be a lot more wild animals around there. But then again, we also know that Bruce Willis was a kid at the time of the start of the pandemic and the virus being released, and we know that woman was on the plane, and she doesn't seem that much younger. So maybe not that much time has really passed. Like maybe only, like, I don't know, like 20 or 30 years or something, perhaps. I don't know.
No, it seems like a long time. Yeah, so 1996, he was a kid. It should have been at least 15 years, like, for him to look like he did in the movie.
Yeah.
All the lions survived.
I feel like the date is out there somewhere.
Is it?
Maybe one of like the plot or trailers I was watching. I forget, but
Oh, okay.
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there was 5 billion people dead. That virus must have been really strong, or like it must have spread. Must have taken some time for 5 billion people to die. Bruce. Well, some lived. So the underground place, that wasn't where regular humans live, or what was it? Because it was like a prison, right? He was at first. It was inside the prison.
I mean, we don't get told this explicitly, but I mean, it seems to me, I forget where I heard this. Maybe I just saw it in the description of the movie, actually. But it says, after the pandemic, the human population gets forced underground. So
yeah, because they didn't want to live above ground because they didn't want to live above ground because they didn't want to get the virus in.
Yeah.
Everybody,
I mean,
everybody
it's
was alive after this thing came and pretty much decimated the population. Had to live underground in order to, you know,
right.
carry on or whatever.
Mhm.
It's pretty much they move civilization underground because the council that they're talking to, that's all underground as well. They pretty much live in like these kind of pods that they select Bruce Willis out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how the future in this one is a really dystopian future. It seems like everyone lives in like basically makeshift prisons and a very authoritarian society where you get forced to volunteer for things like Bruce Willis's character basically is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get too much insight about it because the only thing we see are convicts and then this board of scientists. So we don't see any society outside of that.
And I mean, like you said, they don't show us very much, but I didn't see any women other than that one scientist. Like, I wonder if there's something to do with that. Like, maybe the virus took out more women than men or something. I don't know. That's just total speculation, but I wonder about that.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
there's
it's just that we're
prison
so
guard.
limited in what we see, you know. Like, because it's a prison that they're taking these inmates from. I guess we have to assume that it's like a male prison, right? So
Yeah, that could be the case.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard to speculate, but yeah, if we're looking at the only people outside of prison that we see are the scientists panel, and it's only 5 people. So we don't really get to see too much of the world. We do see that it's pretty shitty. Like the technology is all screwed up, but they don't really give us any insight on how society is as a whole.
Yeah. It's interesting too about like how bad scientists are doing things even though they can do things and they're running the society. I mean, obviously they have limited resources and they still figured out time travel, but they like fuck up and send them to the wrong date and they get bad information and then they reconstruct this voicemail which they find out was just kind of a troll on the psychiatrist's part. That part's interesting too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The first voicemail they got.
Like how it relates to today and how it was kind of didn't run as smoothly as COVID. Is that what you mean?
Well, technically, scientists aren't really, are they? Like lawmakers or still politicians are making the big calls, right? No?
Yeah, that's right.
Also, we don't know if the scientists were running the whole society. We just know that they got prisoners to do these missions. Also, they must have had some authority because if you volunteer, they can get 25 years off your sentence. So, must have had some power.
And they must have had some idea of what's going on. They knew the doctor that they were sending him back to go after ultimately, right? So
Yeah.
they've obviously done some time travel themselves or had people do it for them in town.
Yeah.
Do you guys?
That's true.
Do you guys talk about the guy that just interrupts him and says, "No, I'm not from space. I'm a mentally divergent. I'm from a planet called Unu, and I'm trying. I'm trying to. I'm a select group of intellectuals. We're trying to rule over Pluto or something like that."
Yeah.
That is just crazy.
Yeah.
Also, that guy wasn't wearing a type of clothes others were wearing. He was wearing like a real suit and he had a bow tie on. I was wondering if that guy part of the institution, because everyone was wearing their gown type thing, right? But that
Maybe
guy
they just
was.
let him wear a suit to like to help him maintain his hallucination enough to make him not go like insane with crazy rage or something. I don't know. Because like Dusty said, he did seem like he was legitimately insane.
Yeah. I was wondering if he's like a time traveler too. He traveled from way in the future. Maybe he's from another planet. He travels back and gives. That's unlikely. He's probably crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
But it did have a suit. That stood out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could probably believe that it's all just them in a psychiatric ward somewhere, just telling stories back and forth.
Yeah.
That's what I think is like good about the plot. There's so many ways to interpret it, and so many ways that the way the ending is kind of put together, just like the loop, like we mentioned before. It just leaves you probably leaves you with more questions than answers.
Yeah, it's not that later. There's some loose ends.
Yeah, I like it when movies are ambiguous like that, or at least relatively ambiguous. Like there's still unanswered questions, like you said, that you can speculate about, which is like a whole lot of the fun of watching the movie, basically.
Yeah, it like makes you think after you watch it. You kind of go over the plot in your own head after, you know what I mean? You would probably done this with Usual Suspects, and you've probably done this with Sixth Sense, and you know what I mean, all the other ones that are have you going over the plot again in your head. And yeah, I remember 12 Monkeys when I first saw it did the same kind of thing with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least not like totally crazy, like Lost. Lost, it's like really hard to tell what happens after.
Mm-hmm.
They just
like
leave
Lost the TV series?
The TV series, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it when it's like spelled out to a degree, but you can still speculate. But it's not like totally up to your speculation, like 100%.
See, I just think they had like my interpretation of Lost was they had probably 1 or 2 or 3 good seasons written out plot wise as far as what they wanted to do, and then that show like blew up and people just loved the shit out of it, and I'm sure the ratings went through the roof. And then I think at that point, after like season 2 or 3, they were kind of left going like, where the fuck do we go with this thing? And when you're left in that position, it's like art is sometimes not created the best way when it's forced. Do you know what I mean? It's often created the best when it's kind of just happens either accidentally or just kind of over time, right? And I think these writers were put in a position where they had to do something with the show, and then they just kind of, because if you ask a majority of people, Lost kind of sucks shit.
That ending I wasn't happy, like how much they left to imagination. That was too much.
Yeah,
it's
because
almost didn't end.
They tried to stretch it out as much as possible.
I still liked, like, unlike some people, I guess, I still liked the vast majority of the series. I just didn't like the way they ended it. Like, to me, it was just like, okay, so basically the whole thing is just a fucking giant biblical allegory, and there's no real consequences for anyone dying or anything, and the island is purgatory, basically. Yeah. That's just disappointing.
It had everything you wanted in a show, right? It had good character development. You pretty much loved, certain kind of characters over the first couple seasons, but they just, when you try to stretch out a plot like that so thin over multiple seasons to keep it going, you're left with the audience going, well, why didn't they do this? And why didn't they do that? And then it becomes contradictory, a lot of these thoughts. And then people just go, what the fuck are they doing? And you just I was at least just frustrated at the show in general and said, fuck it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it was pretty good up to like maybe the last 2 seasons or something like that. It's weird. Right. It got weird after that.
And at that point, you're just pretty much staying in to see like what's the season finale going to be, and then I'm out of here.
You already invested so many seasons. Exactly. Now you're like totally in. Yeah, like a lot of TV shows do that. They kind of know that they got the audience now, and then they kind of get lazy with the writing. And
same thing happened with Game of Thrones. I feel with a few seasons in there. Not so much like the first like 3 or 4 seasons were really good, and then near
I
the
think
end.
it's once it got past the book is when it got bad.
That's right, yeah. Because they
Yeah.
were in the same position as Lost. They were in the same position as Lost. We were like, okay, this thing is fucking all super popular. It's the #1 show on HBO right now, and we got to keep this train going as long as possible, right? So I'm sure they had like 1 season left of good writing, and they tried to turn that into 2.
Yeah. That's why I like it when like shows like Breaking Bad, for example. They stopped that at 5 seasons, other than the El Camino movie, of course. But they stopped that after 5 seasons, even though they could have stretched that one out too. And I think the ending of that is great.
Yeah, they did a good job finishing that series,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Yeah, Game of Thrones, I don't even know. They had this religion in the Game of Thrones world. They had resurrections and this priestess. They kind of left that plot line like open. They didn't explain what happened, what's up with that religion or the priestess. She just, I was disappointed with that.
Yeah, I wonder where George R. R. Martin's gonna go with that in the books. Like he could get way more fantasy with it.
Yeah, true.
He's he's pretty good author. I wonder if the book's not being out there and him not finishing the story is the main reason why it sucked. Because maybe
I still haven't seen the last 2 or 3 seasons or so, but that's what I've heard from people.
Save yourself.
Shit. I didn't know that. Sorry if I ruined it.
No, that's okay. I've already it was impossible to avoid some spoilers with so many people talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've invested the time so far, obviously I'm going to say go ahead and watch the whole entire thing, and finish it up. But yeah, it's for me, Game of Thrones was a lot like Lost. The best seasons were early on, the first 1 or 2 or 3 seasons. So
yeah.
Well, I knew it was going to go downhill when they didn't include Strong Bell loss. I was like, uh-oh, something is awry here.
Oh yeah. Wonder why they did that.
Well, they combined the characters. I forgot what Danny's love interest was at the time, but they combined him and Strong Belwas into one character.
Oh, okay.
Strong, is that like a book-only character? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's a book-only character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Strong Belwas is one of the book-only characters. Like in the show, there was this part where the dude that's in love with Danny has like a duel with some dude outside of a city, and then he like pisses on a skull or something. It was like a totally different character that does that.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I didn't read Dance of the Dragons. I think that's probably where he's from.
Yeah, that's the 5th one, right? Apparently, the George R. R. Martin during isolation due to COVID has been getting a lot of work done on Winds of Winter, the next Game of Thrones book. So apparently, that's actually going to be finally coming out sometime soon, like maybe perhaps even this fall or the fall after that.
Oh, that's actually cool.
Yeah. Chris, you haven't read the books, have you?
No, I haven't. I'm just a show watcher, but
okay.
Yeah,
they're definitely. I like them more than the show, which often happens with book adaptations.
Yeah. No, I know. It's just that there's so many. The list of books is
yeah.
I wonder if this pandemic is gonna spawn like a lot of great books and series like a couple of years down the road, because everyone was locked up. Maybe the writers, writers that like to party more, maybe they're gonna write more good stuff now.
That could definitely be the case. I mean, even like some musicians have done that too. Like I've seen a few rappers and like other people like that literally make a few music videos from their home or like with a compilation of different people at their homes.
Yeah, which one?
One was I think Machine Gun Kelly made like one or two of his videos just from his home for one or two of his newest songs. And there are others like there are some bands doing like live performances with all of them each in their separate houses. Like I think Rise Against did one, and there
Oh,
are a
that's
few
cool.
others too. Yeah.
Taylor Swift like launched an album right during the pandemic or something.
Oh yeah.
She
Yeah.
didn't say anything about it, and then there's like album all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah. I heard about that.
Yeah, it's actually really good. And I hate to say that live on the internet, but I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but I like The National, and the guys that put together that album are from the band The National. So they're good.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Indie band.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard of them before.
It's like her version of an indie band if she were to be, you know what I mean? I think a lot of obviously the stuff that she releases before that album is easily digestible, right? It's pop stuff. It's like you listen to it once and you love it, especially if you're 12 years old. But I think that, yeah, I did listen to this new one, and there's more like layers, more texture to it, a lot like an avenue that you wouldn't think is her other than just hearing her voice.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Going back to 12 Monkeys, what do you guys think about the psychiatrist kept mentioning that the Bruce Willis's face seems familiar to her, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I don't know. I always wonder about that too. And I mean, obviously in the opposite direction.
It's the
Oh yeah,
photo. It's the
oh
photo.
yeah, that's probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because she was alive as
Yeah.
well. Like she's a kid, probably.
Or has this been on loop so many times that she
Yeah.
remembers it cognitively in the past somewhere in her brain? I don't know.
Yeah.
When did she first see that picture? Because she could have seen that picture the first time, but just not noticed Bruce Willis in it when she was writing that book that has that picture in it that she's talking about in that presentation when we reintroduce the.
Oh wait, that can't be
Early
because
on.
that's because it's like before, right? Because
Yeah, it's early on in the.
Yeah, she couldn't have seen him. According
Well,
to
we
the
don't
movie.
know.
No, I'm saying like she like according to the timeline, she probably didn't. Well, she could have, but it seems like she didn't see that picture before the first time she sees him in 1990. It seems that way. Like, so to me,
It's possible though, because like
yeah,
when she's at the conference, she had already written her book. We don't really know how long it took for her to research the book.
that's
Like
true.
she could have been researching this thing for like a decade
That's true.
and had come across this picture before in her research. But yeah, at the point where he abducts her, the book had been written, but we really don't know how long she had been researching that particular book. Like it could have literally took her like years, like decades. Well, not a decade, but it could have taken her 10 years. We really don't know.
Yeah, she
that's a good
probably
point.
seen him in the picture while doing research. Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. Like it's interesting because that's one of the many things in the movie that you can speculate about that because that seems like the most likely explanation, but it could be something like you were saying, Chris. Like it could be like they've been through the same loop so many times that part of your memory remembers that, but not all of you does, or maybe something weird is happening. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Does that seem the most likely to you too, Dusty?
I don't know, because I just don't have an explanation for a loop thingy. I know it's super ambiguous about how she's seen his face before. I know it's not really explained much, and we can only really speculate at that point.
Yeah.
Well, the best quote from this movie for me was "mentally divergent."
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be using that.
Yeah. You're mentally divergent.
Seems like you're a bit mentally divergent.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt's character also thinks that they aren't allowed to communicate with the outside world because their mental illness is gonna spread like a pandemic. Like if
Yeah.
the regular people listen to them, they're gonna get the disease and it's gonna spread like a pandemic.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's also one of the interesting aspects of the movie when we still think that the Army of 12 Monkeys are who released the virus, before we find out that all they did was release animals from the zoo, and it was that guy who was working with Brad Pitt's father, who's the scientist who releases the virus. It makes it more interesting because Bruce Willis, I forget what it is. He's watching some TV ad or something, and I forget what it is exactly. Maybe you guys remember, but he says, so when he's in the mental institution with Brad Pitt in 1990, he sees a TV ad or something, and he says maybe the human race deserves to be wiped out. And then when he sees Brad Pitt's character in 1996, when he's in his father's mansion, Brad Pitt says, "It was your idea. It was your idea. It wasn't. You gave me the idea. What if the whole human race got wiped out?" And then that sort of makes you think at first that Bruce Willis inadvertently gave Brad Pitt the idea to release the virus, which is an interesting aspect too.
Yeah, that's how they were leading it. They were always trying to hint at like Brad Pitt being the guy, but now that they switched it up.
Yeah,
which is good for a movie. You don't want it to be too predictable.
yeah, for sure. I like how Terry Gilliam tricks you several times, and pushes you from one direction to the other several times throughout the movie.
Yeah. Also, they have like 11 members. At some point, he like gets to find some of the members, and then they confess, and they say there's like 11 of them, and they you kind of keep thinking who's the 12th member of the 12 monkeys, but then they reveal the 12 monkeys thing came from that woman leaving a voicemail, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I remembered the voicemail, but I forgot that aspect of it.
Yeah, she left some voicemail about 12 monkeys, and then Brad Pitt is like, yeah, this is what she just repeats what she said before she finishes it. So they played this message, and it was like a wrong lead.
Yeah, the one that when Bruce Willis is in 1996, that's when she leaves the message, right? And then he knows what it is because in the future they've reconstructed that message, and then it ends up being misinformation, as you said, right?
Yeah, it was just from the psychiatrist, and in the future they keep thinking it's the 12 monkeys group, and whatever information I can't recall what exactly she said, but they took it like really seriously. That's like one of the locations in time where this virus was spreading or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she said something like the army of the 12 monkeys. They're the ones who did it. They did it in. I think she says they did it in Philadelphia or something. And then she says Merry Christmas at the end.
Yeah.
And then I think I mentioned this earlier before you join too, and then there's later on he leaves a voicemail at the carpet cleaning place where he's not even sure if it actually is a carpet cleaning place or not, or he's not sure whether he's leaving a message that can be received in the future, or or it's actually just a carpet cleaning place. And he leaves a message saying it wasn't the army of the 12 monkeys, it happens this other way. And then that other prisoner who travels back in the time too, he comes back right after he leaves the message and gives him the gun to kill someone without telling him who it is that he has to kill to prevent them from releasing the virus. Oh, looks like Dusty just got kicked out there. He should be back in a minute.
Yeah, just like, yeah, but time seems to be on a loop in that, in 12 Monkeys. So they can't change the past anyways. They'll just alter the entirety of reality if they try to change anything.
Yeah, I was talking earlier about how it almost seems like the way things happened, including them trying to stop the virus, had to happen the way they did, and like you said, they couldn't have stopped the virus whether they wanted to or not, and the way things happened not necessarily led to the virus being released, because it would have been released anyway, but them trying to stop it was like part of this sort of predestination that leads to the outcome of the virus being released. And they didn't even know that, like, them trying to stop the virus, it's almost like it was an essential part, even though they were meant to fail.
Yeah. It was probably in the history books. Like, that event was probably in the history books. That guy in the airport trying to shoot and getting shot. Like,
yeah,
before he even traveled back.
Yeah.
Because he was having the memory, right? Yeah. The dream.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect that we were talking about before too, the recurring dream that he has, which ends up actually just being a memory that he has of him as a kid seeing himself from the future being shot when he's trying to shoot the guy who releases the virus. That's a really cool part of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send Dusty a message here. I'm not sure why he's not back yet. He did have to restart his phone before, but yeah. Oh, there he is. There you are. You get kicked out there, Dusty? Still there? He might have a delay. Hopefully his sound's working. But yeah.
Internet lagging out.
I don't know. Kids, do I have a delay or anything like there, guys?
Yeah, good to me.
Okay. Probably on Dusty's end. I'll send him a message and see what's going on. But yeah, it's a good movie. And oh, there, he's joined again there. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Okay. You there, Dusty? Can you hear us now?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, when did you get kicked out there? I was just talking about the part we were just talking about the part that we were talking about earlier about how it ends up being the case that Bruce Willis's recurring dream, that in which it's gradually revealed that the woman with blonde hair is the psychiatrist, and I don't think it ends up revealing that it's him. No, it doesn't end up revealing in the dream that it's him, because we find that out in real time. But that recurring dream is just him as a kid, a memory that he had as a kid of seeing himself from the future shot when he's trying to shoot the guy who releases the virus.
Well, I guess we could really consider it not really a dream. At this point, it's kind of a flashback from PTSD.
Yeah.
that he's kind of having.
Yeah,
Because we could probably consider this a very traumatic event for someone of his age to witness. You know, some guy getting shot in the chest while running down at an airport. So I'm thinking it's not even a dream, really. It's just him suffering some post-traumatic stress and him having flashbacks of the events.
yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
Did you guys see the new
But he doesn't
Batman
know
trailer?
that. He just calls it a dream.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he doesn't know that. No, I didn't see the new Batman trailer. Did you?
Yeah, it was interesting. Or like Robert Pattinson, he was in it, and I think that the Riddler was supposed to be the villain. I didn't know from the trailer. You can't really tell, but there seems to be a part where the villain is leaving like a rhyme about Batman. No one else saw it. The trailer.
No,
Did you, Chris?
I saw it floating around the internet, and I know Robert Pattinson is going to be the next Batman. I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm like Batman, Spider-Man.
Too many?
Too many for me.
Right.
Just I don't know. I kind of quit somewhere around Ben Affleck and who is it? Val Kilmer. I don't know, somewhere in there. I've seen,
I'm so really far away.
I feel like I've seen a majority of them, but I know I trailed off there for a few years just because it's like really another Batman movie.
Yeah.
So you didn't see any of the Nolan films?
Yeah, like Dark Knight I did see. Yeah, I don't know. Batman's been one of those ones that's gone up and down depending on who the like. I don't think the Ben Affleck was that good of a series.
Right now, DC is trying to capture the magic that Marvel created and are epically failing.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm seeing it as.
But they're beating a dead horse way too much, and I think that's why a lot of these are failing. I mean, if you look at any of the real Marvel ones that are actually standouts, I think they're, I don't know.
Well, like one part of it is one actor consistently playing the same character. Like with Batman and Spider-Man, it's like one actor playing. It's a different actor playing the character after every 2 or 3 films. Like if you count all the crossover and all the different movies in the Marvel movies, like Robert Downey Jr. has played Iron Man like at least a dozen times or something like that, probably.
Yeah, most of the cast stays the same. Besides, like I think Hulk, they changed that. I don't know if they changed.
No, Hulk has been the same.
You mean like since Avengers, right? He was the third.
No, we're saying since Iron Man was kind of like the first MCU movie.
Yeah.
Wasn't Mark Ruffalo the Hulk back then? And he's
been for the entire MCU. He's been the Hulk.
No. Sorry. Who was the other guy I was thinking of? That
the
was
Fight Club guy.
Before the MCU, the first Hulk movie had Eric Bana. And then they had one after that with Edward Norton before Mark Ruffalo in first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder why Christian Bale didn't join for the Justice League ones. They used Ben Affleck they didn't use him in any of the solo Batman movies. They used him in the Batman versus Superman and like Justice League movies, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, I'm totally speculating, but I think, like, it seems like everyone involved with the Dark Knight movies, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Rises, it seems like everyone involved with those didn't want to continue the Batman story, and maybe the studios were just like, well, we're going to continue it anyway without you, so we'll just get new people.
Yeah, 100% they did that. This is definitely the studio that's not fucked this up. Like I said, the Batman series has been up and down like a roller coaster. Same with Spider-Man. The cartoon Spider-Man is like probably one of the best movies out of all of them.
The multiverse Spider-Man?
Yeah, that one, yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
It was pretty good. I'd recommend it.
You mean Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I was thinking the Batman. There was a Batman animated show like long time ago. That show was really good.
Which one?
Well, most of the
Batman,
video
the animated.
games. Yeah, most of the video games use the same voice actors for from the animated show.
Didn't Mark Hamill plays the Joker? He voices
The
the Joker
Joker.
on a bunch of the newer Batman games, right?
Yeah, in all the Arkham games, he plays the Joker.
Right.
All of the Arkham games, it's the same voice actor for Batman and for everybody else.
Okay.
The one I'm talking about is it started in '92 and ended in '95, and the writer is Bruce Timm.
Okay.
So,
I might
Yeah,
have
it's,
seen it.
yeah, that was Batman the Animated Series.
I definitely
Yeah, I
watched
thought-
I think I saw like 2 or 3 different Batman animated series perhaps when I was a kid. I know there was one just Batman, and I think I watched a little bit of Batman Beyond, and there was probably like one other one or so.
yeah, I thought Batman Beyond was pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
Is
I remember-
Batman Beyond the future? Sorry, is that the future one where?
I think so. I don't
Yeah,
remember it
Bruce
very
Wayne is
well.
old, and it's
I
like a kid.
remember watching an animated Batman movie when I was a kid that I thought was really awesome. I think I'd be curious to watch it again now. It was this one called The Mask of Phantasm. I don't know
Oh,
if you
yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
I thought that movie was. I remember thinking that movie was really good when I saw it.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that one was in the same style as Batman the Animated Series. So it's kind of a offshoot movie from that series.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I remember when it came out because it had blood in it. So that was like something you really didn't see in the animated series.
Oh, I didn't know
So-
that it had blood in it, or didn't remember.
Yeah,
It.
so the Mask of the Phantasm shows like Bruce Wayne getting fucked up really bad, and he's just like bleeding from the mouth. So it's
Okay.
like kind of a big deal back then.
Right. Yeah.
There was also a Batman The Dark Knight animated movies, like part 1 and
Oh,
part 2. Those were
yeah.
like pretty good as well.
Yeah, I've wanted to watch those for a while. I've heard of them, but I haven't seen them.
Those had like small stories of Batman. A different version. It was kind of like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where there's like different versions of Batman, like fighting different villains over time, like short stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did
Yeah,
the same
that's
with
true.
Lego. So when like Lego came out, they did a Lego Batman series. I don't know if DC did it, but it was like a 1 hour
It's like
episode.
child friendly, and there's
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of like jokes in it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're like I haven't seen any of those Lego movies. They're like Lego movies of every or a lot of Marvel superhero and DC superheroes at least, and there's Lego Star Wars and other stuff too.
Yeah, dude, the first Lego movie, like the Lego movie, is amazing. You should watch it. It's really good. I know it's a kids movie, but it actually has a lot of like kind of jokes and like hints at cultural references that you would get. You know what I mean? Like there's Batman is in
Yeah.
it. You know, there's Will Ferrell does like a whole like live spot, and I don't know. Yeah, it was good. It was funny too. You know, it's a kids movie, but you could tell that they worked on like getting the jokes right for it, so that adults would enjoy it as well.
It's basically a movie that they want adults to take their children to, or
Yeah,
buy their kids. So that it's basically a family movie
Yeah,
that tries to hide the innuendos and all that.
yeah. Number 2 was
That's
good
pretty
too,
cool.
but number 1 was way better for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I should
Lego
check it out.
Batman's pretty funny if you ever
Yeah.
go watch it.
Yeah,
I
Like,
didn't
it is
watch any of the
hilarious.
Lego movies either. I gotta watch them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
It's,
is one of those like more mature animated Batman movies is one of them one of them's about all about the Joker supposedly, and it's called The Killing Joke. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's about.
It's based off of a comic book, but I've never actually watched it or read the comic book.
Okay. Those movies, they're based on the Batman comic series by Frank Miller, who did Sin City.
Yeah, it's probably pretty good. I just
Yeah.
haven't seen or read it.
It's like Joker, the origin story, right? The Killing Joke.
Cool.
No idea. No clue.
Yeah, I might be confusing two of them because there's two or three Joker origin movies. Also, they had the recent one. Recent one wasn't based on any DC comics. It was like standalone, right? They just made a new story for Joker.
Which
I think
one?
that's probably the biggest problem with the DC universe is that they keep rebooting it. It's
Yeah.
because they haven't really done that in the Marvel side. Like if you take a look at all the X-Men movies, they don't keep rebooting the X-Men. It's like, okay, you have the X-Men when they're further along, and then you have the X-Men when they're like super young, and those are all different timelines. Like they're all within the same universe. It's just at different points in the X-Men timeline.
Yeah.
And then they don't just. It's like Batman. He gets his origin story just rebooted constantly. It's like, Jesus, we know Batman. Like, you know, come on now, guys.
Did you know that
Same thing seems to happen with Spider-Man also, but
yeah,
that's what happens.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, like there was Tobey Maguire, and then Andrew Garfield, and then Tom Holland. Yeah, he's the new one. Yeah, they're like, I don't know why they don't stick to. I know that the I think the guy's name is Avi Arad, who's the producer of all the Spider-Man movies. He owns the intellectual property of the character of Spider-Man, I think. So he has to make a Spider-Man every few years or so because the patent or intellectual property rights or whatever the fuck it is kind of expires every year and a half or so, or 3 years. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, Sony licensed it, so they own the license for Spider-Man. So
Okay.
they have to make like a crappy Spider-Man movie every few years in order to keep the license. As I think, like Marvel borrowed the license for Spider-Man for a couple of the movies.
The Avengers, right?
Yeah, so whenever Spider-Man shows up, and a couple of the Spider-Man movies were Marvel Studios Spider-Mans.
Oh,
like,
the recent ones, right?
Yeah, well, the ones with Tom Holland,
right?
Like the first one was by Marvel, and then I think the second one went back to Sony. But Marvel was like, you better do a good job with this shit, else we're gonna get pissed off.
Right. Oh, okay.
So
I haven't seen the second one with Tom Holland. I just saw the first one.
Yeah, I saw the first one with the Vulture, but I didn't see the second one. I haven't seen the second one yet, at least.
Okay.
Oh,
I was trying to watch all of them before Infinity War. I was trying to do my best to see all of those.
Yeah, I still want to watch those other movies in the MCU that I haven't seen, like the Ant-Man movies that you recommended to me that I still haven't watched. I still want to watch those before I watch Avengers Endgame, which I still haven't seen.
Yeah, man, you got the site to watch all those stuff, so it's there.
There's so many good movies. It's similar to the good problem that I have with books. Too many awesome movies to watch, so I never get to all of them. But that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, man, you need to catch up on the Dresden, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I just finished book 5 the other day, and you said book
Uh,
6 is like really awesome, so I'm looking forward to that one even more.
I loved book 6, and Daniel Green hated book 6.
Yeah, I know. You
Like,
were telling me about that before, but he also in his reviews, he didn't like any of the books as much as he liked the first one. And I liked each book after the first one more than the first one.
Yeah, there are just I wouldn't say there were some bad books. Like, they're all decent, but it's like we want to see. It's like when you get further along, you're very much looking for some type of grand narrative going on instead of these like episodic detective stories.
Yeah.
And they do, and it gets there. You're just like uncertain by book 6. You're like, okay, we're in book 6 now. And then I was like, oh, okay, there's some really, really interesting stuff that's happening in book 6 now. So maybe now they're going to get into this grand narrative. But yeah, the first 5 books are like just kind of seem like separate and unrelated stories for the most part.
Do you say the first 5 or first 6?
The first 5.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I like. Well, it seems like it seems like it's the case that gradually with each book the the characters get more in depth and more complex and real, and there's more tragic stuff that happens to the character, and there's gradually more and more world building, and then obviously, like, I think it's around book 4 where there's literally like basically starting to be a war between the different courts, like the different vampire courts and the White Council of the Wizards and stuff. You, Chris and Scazio, you guys probably don't know what we're talking about, but it's this the Dresden
you
Files.
talked about this series.
Oh yeah, I talked to you about this last
I know
time.
you're talking about. I just haven't read any of the books.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I downloaded the audiobook. I didn't get to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a really good series about like this wizard who lives in the modern world who works as a private detective, and he basically hunts demons and supernatural creatures like werewolves and vampires and whatnot. And then, like Dusty and I were saying, the world gradually gets more complex and magical, and there are more intricate plots and more interesting relationships between the characters and so on, and it's a really good series.
Yeah,
He's kind of like the main character is the loose cannon. He's just basically everyone thinks he's crazy, everyone thinks he's kind of just wild and out there, but he really has everyone's best interests at heart. The decisions he makes are just like really unorthodox, and people don't like his unorthodoxy.
He's like a Dr. House. I don't know if you guys seen that.
I don't know. I never watched House.
Oh, I love that show. No, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say the main character is that much like House. He is a little bit in that he's sort of like carefree to an extent and kind of like sloppy in a little bit, but he doesn't like alienate people, Harry Dresden, in the same way that House does, and he's not like a super genius like House either, and so he's less arrogant, and he's less antisocial basically.
Yeah, I'll get around to it.
Well, I would say he's magically very clever.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely got a lot of skills.
Did you read? Did you finish?
He's clever.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, what were you saying, Scazio?
I was asking Dusty, did you finish Gardens of the Moon?
No, I got halfway through it, and then I'm like, okay, I have like some other reading I had to do. Like, I had to finish The Wheel of Time, so I had to put down Gardens of the Moon for a while. But I think after I'm done with Right now I'm reading King Killer 2. So right when I finish that, I'm gonna get back into Gardens of the Moon. But man,
Which
that
one
book is weird.
Which one is that? I've never
What?
heard of.
It's the first book in Malazan.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know you were into those, Scazio. That's cool.
Yeah, they're like I feel about that. What I feel about that series is kind of like how you guys feel about Wheel of Time. I didn't read Wheel of Time though. I gotta get to that. But yeah, I mean, it starts off a little strange because there's like so many characters, and there's like they don't really describe the magic system and the ascendancy stuff. But
No, they don't. So it's like super confusing because there's like a battle in the beginning of the book, and then you're like, "What the hell's going on?" Because you don't really know how the magic works. And then
yeah,
there's like all these freaking characters they introduce. Like they go to a completely different setting with a bunch of other characters, and you're like, "Why are these people important?" Like you don't know, and it just gets a little confusing. Like the only thing. Like I do like the first characters they introduce, kind of like this the sorceress, because it's crazy. Like they have like military ranks, and like their sorcerers are like kind of like officers in the army and whatnot. But
yeah, their
like
sorcerers are kind of like a battle tool, like how you would use like a airplane or something like that. You know, they're like part of the army. They're not like all powerful. They're kind of like they have their place in the army. It's
yeah,
mostly the foot soldiers that do stuff.
yeah.
But
So it's so interesting. There's like so many different freaking races too, so you get confused over that. Like, what's this race here? You're like, oh yeah, there's this other race here, and like, and they're not like standard races like elves and stuff like that. They're like, oh, there's these big orc like bug people, and then there's these slightly cavemanish people, and then there's like these black skinned magical people here, and then there's these zombie people that are like thousands of years old. Like, damn, it's fucking hard to keep track of these people. And it's
That
like, oh,
sounds
these
really
zombie
interesting.
people descended from this race of people, and blah 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 blah. Like, Jesus.
Emos. Yeah, I mean, yeah, at first it's kind of confusing because they introduce so many new races and magic systems and stuff. But yeah, once you like map it out a bit, after the first book, you kind of map it out. Also, in the back of the books, they kind of have a reference to all this stuff, so you can always
Well, they
like
did
go.
in the front. Like in the beginning of the book, it shows you every character and it has like a little blurb about them. But damn, man, I don't even know what the hell a Warren is. Like they keep talking about, oh, traveled the Warrens, run the Warrens, blah 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 blah. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah,
Wow,
they're
this sounds like a
It's
fucking
like, oh,
complex
we tapped into.
series. If
Yeah,
even
the first book
even
is
you,
difficult.
Dusty, even you, Dusty, who understand Wheel of Time better than I do, which is phenomenally complex, have trouble understanding it. It must be really complex.
it's not.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
like they shove a lot of like stuff at you right in the beginning, and there's not. I almost feel like this book so far is devoid of exposition. Like usually the author uses exposition to explain things that are like part of the world, and I feel like this book is completely devoid of that. So it's hard to figure out the world because there's like literally basically no exposition to figure these things out from. I know some things get explained, like I know when they were talking about the emos, like, oh, they're thousands of years old and they're like zombies, but like the
yeah,
magic system seems to be pretty major, and I don't know what they're talking about yet.
they just have like different realms. The Warrens are like different realms. The magic system is like basically they open a portal, and if they open the fire portal, like fire comes out. They open the wind portal, wind comes. It's kind of like that. Also, they have like
Yeah, but there's also gods too. Like the one of the main mages is like some type of fortune teller, and she's like, "Oh, there's this god has this hand in this and that," and the gods are conspiring for this. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, they do that card reading thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah. At first, it's a bit weird at first, but I think by the time we finish the first book, you kind of get the world. But first book,
I'm hoping so.
yeah, and the second one, the cast is totally different. They don't even have the cast from the first one.
See,
That was
that's
like
what's concerning to me. Like, I had heard about that, and I was finding that concerning. I was like, oh, I'm gonna read about like totally new characters in this next book. Oh, okay, I'll have to soldier through it. Like, I'm determined to finish this. I'm not
they all
actually
come
going to
together.
cut this off.
The payoffs are pretty good. They all come together, and also all the books, they have their own like finished like they have their own stories, standalone stories, and then
Yeah, there's like
from
some other author too, right? Like some other dude writing books in the Malazan universe that are kind of like side stories
oh
and
Oh,
yeah,
really?
whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, the other guy writes like another story from but you don't have to read the other guy. You can just read the Malazan series and you'd get like the whole series. But the other guy like also writes in the same world, but he writes in like different continents and different casts. And the storyline kind of they're like in between. So 1.5 is like that guy's story, 2.5 is like that guy's story. It's kind of like that. He like interjects in the middle of the books.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should read that series. That's one of the ones that I've heard about for a while and have been meaning to read, like on this long list of fantasy series that you recommend to me, Dusty. They're most of them are ones I hear first from like those booktubers and podcasters who talk about fantasy books that we follow, like Daniel Green and like the Legendarium podcast.
Yeah. Because I
And then,
know you're a big Grimdark fan. I
yeah,
know you love Abercrombie and you've been reading that. But if you're wanting to explore more of that, like in the fantasy genre, I would say check out Night Angel. I think you'd like that.
oh yeah, you recommended that too. That's the one by Brent Weeks, right?
Yeah, he writes a bit darker, so I think you'd actually enjoy the Night Angel because it's an assassin fantasy,
Oh,
and
cool.
I know you really liked Best Served Cold,
Yeah.
so you'd probably like it. It's a trilogy, and there's some really dark shit in that book. Like it's like, damn, this
Oh,
guy's
okay.
going at it.
Some of the Malazan books are actually like assassin fantasies because you discovered the character Kalam, right?
Is that like when they're in kind of like this other area, and he's like some thief dude? Is that the guy?
It's not the thief
Or
dude.
there's
It's
like, okay, so Malazan, I know, okay, I'm in that second area. So the first area is where they were having the battle, and then the second area is like it's like a group of friends. One of them's a thief, the other guy's
he's like in
like
the
a,
bridge he's like in the bridge burners. So one of the
oh,
sorcerers,
yeah, I know who you're talking about. It was a guy that's in the bridge burners that used to be in the Claw or something like that.
yeah, that guy. Some of the like in the future books, there's like a lot of his story, and those are like totally assassin stories. Like
Oh, okay. I like
it's from
assassin stories. They're fun.
yeah, it gets to his when it gets to his POV, there's like totally assassin based. But
But yeah,
you were talking about Grimdark. Does Grimdark the book have to do anything to do with Grimdark the video game?
oh no, Grimdark is it's basically a fantasy genre.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so
So
genre.
yeah,
Like
it's kind of
A Song of
like
Ice and Fire slash Game of Thrones is an example of that. It's
Oh,
it
okay.
like
is. I would say it's a lighter Grimdark. Like
lighter
if I
than
just
lighter than First Law for sure. If you haven't read it, Scazio, the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, it's like assassin grimdark fantasy. It's awesome.
It's darker than Game of Thrones, the book of Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
yeah, certainly.
Oh,
It's certainly darker. Like all the characters are like morally ambiguous. Um they all have some darkness to them. Like there's no truly like in Game of Thrones we have like our truly morally righteous characters like Ned Stark, um, Jon Snow. Those are who you would consider like morally righteous characters.
Yeah.
There are none of those in any of the Joe Abercrombie books. They're all to some degree bastards in some sense,
Yeah.
or broken. They're all like broken people to some extent.
Gotta check it out.
Yeah. And I guess Joe Abercrombie loves writing about crippled people. I gotta find out because I have his Heroes book checked out from the library, and I'm gonna check that out soon. But it seems that his combat scenes are pretty gross. I don't know what you think about them, Andrew, but they're pretty graphic.
Yeah, they're graphic. Sure.
They're graphic in a realistic way. Like they seem like whenever writers write combat, they kind of whitewash it. It sounds like when Joe was writing it, he's just getting very gritty and kind of portrays it in a more real way. Like, dudes choking on their own blood and, like much more realistic, I guess, portrayals. Like you get messed up in combat. It happens really quick and it's really brutal and fast.
Yeah, definitely. Very gruesome and like described in minute detail.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I do like that about Abercrombie. But if you're looking for some really dark shit, yeah, Joe is a good way to go.
Yeah, that crippled character, one of the crippled characters, Glockta, is really interesting because he's like one of the bad guys, but the whole trilogy is basically it's like bad guys and worse guys, kind of, because the main protagonist is kind of a bad guy too, and Glockta, I forget how you pronounce his name. He's a crippled torturer for the king. And Logan Nine Figures is a bad motherfucker. He's an awesome character.
Yeah, Logan is really interesting. He's like you could see him. Okay, he's heroic, but he has like some really dark shit that happens.
Yeah,
like when he's doing his combat thing. You're like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, this guy's
like
nuts.
when he goes into berserk mode.
Yeah, it's just like, wow. And then there's this because there's like what Baez. He's like, I don't even want to talk about him because yeah, what happens with him is just like, holy shit, this guy is fucking callous as fuck.
Yeah.
And then and these are like the heroes of the books. Yep. Like, Jesus. Like these are the heroes. Like, man, they're not really people to look up to. And it's funny because in his other books that kind of he writes because he writes within this world. So he wrote after this trilogy another book, and man, those characters are super fucked up too, man. It's like, wow.
In that one, the only other one I've read so far that's not in that trilogy, and has different characters, but is set in the same world. It's the same. It's the same way too. Like
it has some different characters because like half of the main characters are actually from the trilogy. Like you have the mercenary.
That's true.
Yeah, the mercenary have one of Glockta's lackeys. Forgot her name. You have freaking Shivers.
Oh, so, yeah.
So all those characters are from like the other trilogy, but they weren't main characters. They're kind of like side characters.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, he's good. Like on Twitter, I think his handle is Lord Grimdark.
Yeah,
He's considered the pinnacle of the genre.
yeah. I just started following him on Twitter recently. He has some fun tweets. But yeah, I should check out that. That sounds like I should check out that Malazan series too, and also Night Angel. I'll definitely read both of those.
Yeah, I'll check
I think
out.
you should get into some Brent Weeks. Like
Yeah.
he writes some good stuff.
Yeah, and you guys should check out the Blade Itself trilogy if you want to, and the Dresden Files series too, and Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah, Wheel of Time. I plan on reading Wheel of Time for sure. You guys seem
should
like
at least read the. You should just read at least the first book before the TV show comes out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a show that's going to come out on Amazon Prime. I think supposedly sometime next year, maybe, right, Dusty?
Well, who knows with COVID?
Yeah.
I think it was actually supposed to come out this year, and then they got delayed from the pandemic.
Right.
But hopefully it comes out next year. That's going to be exciting.
Is it going to be animated or is it going to be like real people?
Oh, it's live action. It's going to be live action, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're trying to do the next Game of Thrones, I guess. But it's not really going to be... I don't know. I don't really compare the two because they're not...
They're pretty different.
They're not really analogous, right? They're not... Yeah, they're not really that analogous. Like Game of Thrones, it's more about political plots and people backstabbing each other.
There's definitely some of that in Wheel of Time. But
there is, but
it's not grim dark, and it's more of like the traditional fantasy tropes, but it like extends them, right? And takes them in different
plays with them. Yeah, he plays with them,
like
and then.
Sorry, does it have like elves and orcs and stuff in the Wheel of Time?
No, there's no like traditional fantasy races. There are like, I guess, demon type soldiers that are kind of like orcs, I guess. But there's no elves. There's no dwarves. There's kind of like this race of, I guess, what do you call them? The Ogier. They're kind of like dwarves, but they're not because they're gigantic.
They're like the opposite in height.
Yeah, and they love nature. So they're kind of like, an Ogier is like a combination of elves and dwarves because they're handy with tools, but they love the nature like elves. So it's weird. And they're like these huge, like muscly ogre-looking guys.
Yeah, they're kind of like a little bit like Ents in that way.
Yeah. I guess the closest comparison would be Ent, because they kind of are like forest caretakers in a way, in a sense.
Yeah.
And they act and move very slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. There's no. The races are not traditional. But the very first book is very Lord of the Rings like. Well, at least the very first book, I would say, pulls a lot of tropes from that.
Interesting.
But then it morphs away from that by like the second and third book. Because originally it was only supposed to be a trilogy. It ended up being written out to 14 books in a prequel.
Yeah, they kind of break that the sort of
14 books.
The sort of plot format after the first 3 books. They kind of break that and extend things into very different and more complex directions.
Yeah,
and it's the society in Wheel of Time is matriarchal.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the Aes Sedai, the people who sort of have the main seats of power, and even like the
queens.
the queens in the kingdom. It's all women who control all that.
Yeah, so mostly women are like the most powerful people in the world of, like even the Shan Chan, it's like the Empress. So it's all women who hold most of the seats of power.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting series. Lots of was the Love Square?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Love Square?
Yeah, Rand and three
Or-
love interests.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on, mental health things.
They're like
it's-
realistic characters to the point that they annoy the fuck out of me sometimes, because they're like some of the characters, their personalities and the way they interact with people, they can be so annoying. And especially like there's so much miscommunication with people because they're not telling people things that they're feeling, and there's it's like they make things all kinds of or I mean unnecessarily complicated for themselves in all kinds of ways. And it's funny how you experience the thoughts in their heads, and like how they're going to say something but they don't say that and they say something different.
Yeah, so the way it's written, I guess it's kind of like a third-ish person, because you
Yeah.
do get to see inside the characters' heads and what they're thinking, but it's not actually first person.
Yeah.
It's a strange, like when you're reading it, you totally get it, but you'd have to read it and see, like, to see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting. So they have like a unique style of like writing from the perspective. It's not like character's perspective. It's different.
It's like you get character point of views chapters. Like all the chapters are from a character's point of view, kind of like Game of Thrones, where each chapter is about a character. But in this, it's a limited third person. So it's third person, but we also get to see their thoughts, like their literal thoughts, like what they're thinking in their heads. And that's only for the characters that the point of view is focused on. So you get to see that character's thoughts, but it's not first person. Like it's not written in a journal style. Like for instance, Dresden is first person.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole narration of the entire series is by the character Dresden. Like he narrates everything. And we only see his point of view ever. So there's no cuts away from other characters or anything of that nature. It's always Dresden's point of view. And he writes as if like he's writing the story himself. So it's always the first person. Like I went here, I did this. He's the one that describes everything. In the case of Wheel of Time, the descriptions of things are not necessarily the characters, if that makes sense.
So it's kind of like isn't Malazan the same? Yeah, Malazan's kind of third person as well, right?
It is, but I don't think you actually do. You get to see the thoughts of the characters? Like I'm not certain.
In their paragraphs, you do, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. I think you do.
Yeah, I think I'd have to check. I know it's like it's interesting because you get to hear people talk to themselves in the book constantly. People are talking to themselves, and in Wheel of Time, like I think people talk to themselves more than they actually have dialogue with other characters.
Yeah.
Like that's how much in the head of characters you get in Wheel of Time.
The only the only series I've read so far in which you get the characters' thoughts in their head more than the actual dialogue, I would say, is the Dune series, especially the first book.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, dude.
that,
Like there's conversation between two people, and then there's like 2 sentences or 3 sentences of analysis of that character's thoughts, and then they say like 2 words, and then there's
Yeah,
more like in the head analysis. Yeah, Dune is
yeah,
like a lot of it's in the characters' heads,
yeah.
yep.
and then
So
that
do you
third
guys
book
like
is just
Dune or
crazy.
yeah,
The fourth book is like, what the hell is this? Did you finish the third book, Andrew?
No, I'll probably finish it tonight though.
Did you
But
like Dune, Andrew?
like I was telling you before, I like the third book, at least what I've read of it. I like it I like it a lot more than the second one. I loved the first one. I was really disappointed by the second one, but I like the third one almost as much as the first one so far.
Yeah, I think the consensus is the second book is it took a weird turn, but the first one is definitely like it's one of the it's in my all time favorite fantasy. I don't know if it's sci-fi. I would say it's sci-fi. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of like fantasy sci-fi in a way that like Star Wars is kind of similar in that way. Like it has all these like ancient traditional practices, like they're like semi monarchies, and they do things in an old way because it's in a world in which they kind of rejected most forms of technology because there was some sort of AI disaster or something like that, I think. And
Yeah,
especially on the planet Arrakis, aka Dune, they do things in like it's mostly kind of like desert tribes. So that and like all the aspect of their detailed religion and mythology and all that stuff is really interesting.
yeah. I think Joe Rogan's gonna like it. It's gonna be or Duncan
Yeah,
Trussell is gonna because he keeps talking about DMT and spice seems like it gives you like DMT like experiences or something.
it does. Yeah,
Yeah, they don't use computers, but so they use their psychic powers with spice to plan out the coordinates for space travel. The Space Guild people, they need the spice to travel. Pretty interesting.
yeah, it is. All right. Well, I think now that we've as usual, talked about not just the movie, but a whole lot of fantasy books and other science fiction stuff, as we usually do. Um, I think we should end it here for now since we've been going for like 2.5 hours. If that sounds good to you guys.
Yep.
There it is. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
with that.
thanks for talking, guys, and this was lots of fun as per usual. And yeah, maybe yeah, you could probably join the next movie chat if you want to as well, Scazio. I think the next one we were gonna do that we were talking about before is Snowpiercer. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I thought of it because it's a movie that I've seen before, directed by Bong Joon-ho, who directed Parasite, which is the last movie chat that we did, and it's sort of a similar premise in the way that it's about class division and wealth inequality, but it's different in that it's in like a sort of post-apocalyptic future world in which there was basically there was like a nuclear disaster that led to I think it was a nuclear disaster, but something that led to a giant ice age. And so now the world's last survivors go around this endless loop on a train, and the rich and powerful people are at the front of the car, and the poor people are at the back of the car, and they do all the work. And then Chris Evans A.K.A. Captain America, plays this basically guy, lower class person who becomes a hero and tries to either take control of the train or destroy it and destroy basically the rest of humanity in the process, because no one knows for sure, but people say that it's not safe to go outside anymore. So yeah, I was wanting to talk about that one next, if that sounds good to all you guys.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. I know that you're like really into fantasy and sci-fi, like Dusty and I and Chris is too.
Yeah, pretty much into. I've read a couple of series, but yeah, you guys have read a lot more fantasy.
Yeah,
series.
Dusty's read even more than me. He's the most well-read fantasy person I know, and I'm getting there, and I read a lot. So
me, I read way too many. Dude. I spend most of my reading fantasy books. So
yeah, I noticed that.
like even bad ones. Like I like bad books too.
Yeah, like even oh shit, what's it called? Sword of Truth. The Terry Goodkind, that one.
Yeah, I have his other two books. I just haven't read them yet.
Did you read Black Company?
I haven't heard of that one.
That's one that Daniel Green has talked about, and that's probably one I will be needing to read at some point.
Oh, okay. What's it about?
It's about this group of mercenaries, and they're like having this there's this queen called the Queen of Rose, and I read the first book in the series. I didn't finish it, but yeah, they have this inner group conflict, and the main character gets into this conflict with the higher ups of the group. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, because I read the first part of the book because it said that the bridge burners from Malazan was inspired by that book, so that's why I read it. I don't clearly remember the whole plot, but yeah, it was interesting. I didn't like the first book that much, so it's alright.
Okay. Cool.
So check it out.
Yeah, yet another good one to check out. But yeah, so also thanks to everyone who watched this episode, and thanks to all of you who subscribe to my channel, press the like button on the video, comment on it, share it everywhere, and especially to those of you who give me money on Patreon. I really appreciate that. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. Oh, Dusty just got kicked out there. We're about to end it anyway, though. But anyway, and most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And also, read more fantasy and watch 12 Monkeys. And yeah, look for our... oh, there's Dusty. Look for our next movie chat, which we will do on Snowpiercer, as we said. And yeah, anything else you guys want to say before we end it here?
Nope, that's it.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. Stay safe.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, guys. And adios.
You're the only one here.
Adios.